Everyone, so my name is Akal, and what I want to talk about in this particular video is I want to talk about the two primary nadis. Actually, technically, there's three. You have the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. I'm probably mispronouncing those things. Anyway, you figure after 25 years of yoga, etc., that I would know how to pronounce these things correctly. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't know. Anyway, before I continue my ramble here, what I would like you to draw your awareness to is down below the video, you're going to see a link for something called the formula. The formula is, in essence, it's everything that I've discovered along the way to aid individuals in cultivating sacred sexual practices. So if you want to go ahead and click on that, again, it's completely free, and it's a great guideline in terms of what you can do individually and with your partners in order to increase the profundity of your experience. So now getting back into the topic of the video. So the two primary nadis I'm going to talk about is the Ida and the Pingala. The Ida is the cooling, intuitive, and regenerative channel. You could say lunar. And the Pingala is the warming, activating, and expressive meridian, or the solar channel. All right. So I'm not going to get into like sort of masculine, feminine, but oftentimes there's association of the feminine side is the Ida, the masculine side is the Pingala. Experientially, though, we can actually understand this a little bit differently, partially because in modern day times we're scientifically minded. So when I'm talking about lunar or cooling or the Ida side, I'm actually talking about the side that will provoke a parasympathetic response in the nervous system. On the other side, the Pingala or solar channel provokes a sympathetic response. So again, both branches of the nervous system are essential. However, in contemporary modern times, we tend to be on the stress side of things, or the Pingala has a dominance. The sympathetic branch of the nervous system has a dominance. It's the sort of fight and flight, again, high stress. It tends to be associated with cortisol and adrenaline and things like that, whereas the Ida is something that generally we have to work on in contemporary times in order to sort of cool us down. And again, in particular, if we're going into the evening time and we're wanting to rest. And also, after you eat, it's generally speaking, a good idea to have parasympathetic dominance. So what I'm going to tell you about in this video are the practices that you can do in order to voluntarily shift the nervous system. So what do I mean by voluntarily shift the nervous system? The nervous system, each one of these nadis or these channels, or the parasympathetic, sympathetic, has a nostril dominance. The right nostril tends to be associated with the the sympathetic branch, and the solar channel, or the heating, warming, activating, expressive channel. The left nostril is the Ida, or the cooling, or the lunar channel. So if I'm wanting to shift into a cooling or parasympathetic dominance, then what I can do is I can breathe out of the left nostril. And likewise, if I'm wanting to create some stimulation, get the energy going for expression and to be busy, etc., then I want to have the right nostril dominance. Many of us have like a deviated septum inside our nose, so we may actually have a built-in sort of dominance relative to this. Not everyone, but many of us will. And also, the other thing I should mention about the dominance is that the dominance will shift throughout the course of your day, which is actually kind of neat. If you start to pay attention to how you're feeling, like if you're feeling sleepy, and then to notice, like, which nostril am I breathing more out of? You may notice if you're feeling a little sleepy, you may have a left nostril dominance. And likewise, if you tend to be overly anxious and overly stimulated, you might have right nostril dominance. But again, it'll shift throughout the course of the day. Again, pretty neat stuff. Oftentimes in yoga, Kundalini yoga, the system I specifically learned, we often talked about alternate nostril breathing, or breathing out of one nostril or the other voluntarily. In other words, using your fingers to block off the nostrils in order to engage the flow. And I found these practices to be useful to some extent, but I didn't find they cleared anything. They oftentimes helped me create, to encourage a dominance on one nostril or the other, again, which is very, very helpful. But there always felt like there was something missing with these nostril breathing techniques. And what I found was missing, well, how I found it was through the Taoist materials that I've read over the years. In the Taoist materials over the years, they connect, well, they're not necessarily making the direct connection between the nostrils and the root, although some books I'm sure do. What it is that I found in the Taoist materials that was fascinating had to do with the anus. It had to do with looking at the anus as being kind of like a compass. You have a north, a south, an east, and a west. And in a lot of the Taoist practices, they have you contracting one side or the other, right? So you can contract forward or the north pole on the anus, and that's going to contract towards your perineum. And then you can contract the anus on the back side, and that will then cause a sort of a tension or to be felt or a flushing upward of energy along your tailbone and spinal cord. So again, we can use the anus as a way of directing the flow of energy. So now going back to the nostrils. So the Ida and the Pingala, there's a lower point, you could say an origin point or a termination point. So the termination point we'll say is at the nostrils, and the origin point is down by our root, right? And specifically the anus is very, very connected to our root. The other thing I should mention is that there's a crossover inside of the head, right? In sort of esoteric Christianity, they often talk about Christ crucified on the cross at the age, I think it was 32 or 33 or something like that. So it's 33 vertebrae in the spine. And as Christ is crucified on the cross, this actually deals with the optic thalamus at the center part of the brain, where there is indeed a crossover, relative to the nostrils. And again, this occurs inside the head, above the roof of the mouth. There is this nervous system crossover. So in other words, the right nostril actually corresponds with the left side of the brain, and the left nostril corresponds to the right side of the brain. So what you're getting here is you're actually, if you do a little bit of research in terms of lobe dominance and the functionality of the lobes, you'll find that indeed that many of the functions that tend to be correlated to the left side brain or left brain people also will correlate to the functionality of the right nostril and the Pingala Nadi, and vice versa. The right brain functioning corresponds to the lunar left side Ida Nadi. Now, going back to the anus. So what we're going to do when I go into these practices and I describe these practices for you, we're going to be, as we're inhaling, we're going to be contracting either the right or the left side of the anus, depending on which nostril we're breathing out of. So for example, if I'm breathing out of my right nostril, breathing into my right nostril, I'm also contracting the right side of the anus. And then also left side of the nostril, if I'm inhaling through the left, then I'm contracting the left side of the anus. This is how we can create a clearing. Why? Because as you're inhaling, naturally bringing air in creates a pressure. And the thing that we need to keep in mind is that from the sinuses all the way down to our pelvic floor, this is important. Sinuses all the way down the pelvic floor, we are a tube. This tube's primary function, although we bring food in and water, and there's all these different sort of chakras on this tube that have different functions and purposes, primary function is to accommodate air. It's to accommodate air. In other words, a lot of these muscles will relax as air comes in. So now when you're lifting or contracting the area around the anus, right or left side, as you're inhaling, what you're doing is the inhale increases internal pressure. The contraction on the anus will then further increase that pressure in the torso. And again, you're going to feel this as an inflation. And as you inflate, you're going to inflate upward and outward. Okay, so and this is how we can clear these nadis or these channels. So in other words, doing alternate nostril alone, although may be effective for some people, it's not effective for everyone. I guess it depends on the individual. But again, what I found is if you also are integrating the origin point along the root and the termination point, which is the nostrils, all through the same practice, you're going to have a much more effective clearing. And also you're going to be able to activate one side or the other more effectively if your choice is to have a dominance of one side or the other. All right, so let's go ahead and get into describing the practices. So the practices are, what we're going to do first is I'm going to guide you through these practices. We're not going to do them on this video, so I want you to get out a pen and a paper. And you can write these things down. Otherwise, this video is going to be like 25 minutes long. And I want to keep this fairly brief. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to do left nostril breathing. So you're going to want to do left nostril breathing. And again, the pattern here is you're going to block off the right nostril. So right nostril is blocked off. I oftentimes will place one finger, either index finger or middle finger, at my brow point. This functions to help me center in general. I sometimes feel like my energy is all out here and my awareness is all out here. So this really helps me kind of bring it back to center. So what we're going to do with the left nostril only breathing is simply that. We're going to be inhaling and exhaling out the left nostril only. Now the key here is that as you're inhaling through that left nostril, you're contracting the left side of the anus and you're going to feel this pressure. My suggestion is when you're doing this on your own, you do this for at least a minute to 2 minutes, at least. All right, so after you do the left nostril, then you're going to go ahead and block off the left nostril and we're going to do, right nostril only breathing, right? So you're inhaling through the right nostril, left nostril is blocked off, and as you inhale, contracting the right side of the anus. And so again, you do this for 1.5 to 2 minutes. Now, the thing I should also mention really quickly is as you're exhaling, you're relaxing the anus, okay? So you're relaxing the anus on exhale and you're contracting the anus on inhale. I don't think I've ever mentioned anus so many times in a video, but anyway, I'm going to continue. So the next part of the practice is breath of fire through either nostril. So once again, we're going to go ahead and start talking about the left. So same thing, except this time we're going to go ahead, we'll block off the right nostril, and we're going to inhale a deep breath through the left, exhale out the left, take a half breath in through the left, and breath of fire. Couple tips here. What is breath of fire first off? Breath of fire is when you pull in your belt line, air goes out, and when you relax your belt line, air will come in. Okay, so let me repeat that. When you pull in your belt line, air will come out, and when you relax the belt line, air will come in. The other thing I should say about it is it doesn't have to be super strong. You can do this very, very gently at first. In fact, usually when I'm doing single nostril breath of fire, I'm doing it very gently. And so keep in mind that the breath of fire also functions to help center your awareness at your navel point or your body's true center of gravity. So it's also very, very important practice relative to that. So after you do about 1 to 2 minutes of breath of fire through the left nostril, then you're going to go ahead and block off the left, and you can do the same thing with the right. So once again, it'll be the same thing. Inhale full breath. Exhale there out. Inhale a half breath through the right nostril and breath of fire. Again, it's very, very gentle. In and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. So again, just to repeat this again, because people will do the reverse of this particular breath pattern often. When you pull in the belt line, air goes out. When you relax the belt line, air comes in. So the other thing I should mention is while you're doing the breath of fire, don't worry about the anus. Don't worry about contracting the right side or the left side. Just focus on the breath of fire and through the single nostril, okay? So after you've done that, then what we're going to do is we'll go into alternate nostril breathing. So again, the alternate nostril breathing, generally we start with the left side. So you go ahead and block off that right nostril and you inhale left, And usually I like to do this like a box breath, meaning the amount of time in is, and then the time, let's say 4 seconds in, 4-second retention, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds retention out. So go ahead and I'll walk you through it. So inhale left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Retain, 1, 2, 3, 4. Block off left, exhale out the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, out. And then leaving the air out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we'll repeat. It'll be inhaling left, exhaling right, inhaling right, exhaling left. And again, you're alternating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Just keeping in mind that we're using 4-second increments. And this is one way you can do it. You can also simply go back and forth. So it's inhale left, exhale right, inhale right, exhale left. And that's without the retentions. I like the retentions because the retentions are precious. When we retain the breath in, this is our opportunity to increase our concentration and our focus. When we retain the breath out, that's our opportunity to connect to our true presence, our consciousness itself, the stillness within. So that's alternate nostril breathing. Now, the final, and also I should mention, as you're inhaling left and inhaling right, you're also contracting, inhaling left, contracting left side of the anus, inhaling right, contracting the right side of the anus. So the very same pattern when we are doing the isolated nostril breathing. Now, the final step to this whole process of clearing the nadis is a little bit of breath of fire again. So just a 30 seconds to 40-second round of breath of fire, but this time through both nostrils. So you take a deep breath in. Tongue this time is at the roof of the mouth. So you really want to make sure that the tongue is forward towards the air point, which is, again, behind the upper two front teeth. And so then after you take a deep breath in, you go ahead and exhale the air out. And then you inhale a half breath and breath of fire. Again, you do that for about 30 to 45 seconds. And this will help further start to clear those channels. And again, when you're doing the breath of fire, don't worry about the anus. Finally, now we're going to do both nostril breathing. So it's just long, deep breathing. So you're inhaling and exhaling out of both nostrils. Once again, my recommendation here is as you're inhaling, you just generally contract the anus. So you're just generally lifting the anus. The perineum is also going to contract and lift at that time. So you're inhaling through both nostrils, exhaling, releasing the anus, exhaling out of both nostrils. And once again, you want to continue to do that for 1 minute to 2 minutes. So let me go ahead and recap all the steps. Step 1 is unilateral or single nostril breathing. So inhaling left, exhaling left. As you're inhaling, contracting the left side of the anus. Inhaling right, exhaling right. As you're inhaling, contracting the right side of the anus. So again, you're doing each nostril. Think about 1 minute to 2 minutes, more or less. Next step was the breath of fire through each individual nostril. And again, no anus contraction during that. So just breath of fire through the left, breath of fire through the right. Again, you're doing about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes, or you could do, again, breath of fire you can do for as long as you're comfortable. I like to do 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, sometimes just 45 seconds, sometimes 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. Breath of fire is amazing. Again, it helps you center, saturate with oxygen, and slow your overall respiration rate. After the breath of fire through each individual nostril, then you go on to the alternate nostril breathing. Inhale left, exhale right, exhale left. Again, you can do it as a box breath, which would be inhaling left, retaining the breath in, exhaling right, retaining the breath out, making sure that you're using equal time measurements. And then you'll inhale right, retain the breath in, exhale left, retain the breath out. Once again, remembering to use equal time frames for the inhale, the retention in, exhale, retention out. Finally, also keeping in mind that as you're inhaling for the alternate nostril breathing, you're also contracting the corresponding side of the anus. So it's inhale left, you're contracting the left side of the anus. All right, so finally, then we have the both nostril breath of fire. So same thing, just both nostrils in and out. Again, 35, 40, 50 seconds, or up to a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes onward. It's up to you how long you do these things. And then finally, just nice, long, deep breathing, inhaling and exhaling through both nostrils, contracting the anus on inhale, anus and perineum specifically, on inhale, and relaxing the anus and perineum on exhale. And this is how you can clear your nadis or the channels. And also you can then take advantage of either having balanced breathing, or if there's times where you need to cool down, you can just activate the left side. Times where you need to be more sharp and more focused, then you want to activate the right side. So hopefully you found this video informative and helpful. I thank you all for watching.